it's impossible to learn the right lessons from our experience unless, well, it turns out most of us are not that great at learning the right lessons from our experience, so we end up repeating those bad decisions. We make the same decision mistakes in our personal relationships and in business. Why is that? What is the unless part? It turns out that there's two parts to the unless that will allow us to really learn the right lessons from experience. The first one is a very practical problem that we face in terms of feedback. If you think about touching a hot stove plate, with the first time you do that, you learn from the experience. Don't touch hot stove plates. Of course, unless my two boys, they have to touch it a second time just to be absolutely sure. But the reason why we learn from a single event is because we get immediate feedback. Unfortunately, in life and in business, most of our decisions take a long time before we see the effect. So if you take that example and you think for yourself, imagine you were burnt by that stoveplate just a week later. How long will it take you to put those two events together? So a very practical way to ensure that you can learn from experience is to look at how I can dramatically reduce the feedback cycles. Create small experiments that I can quickly go and check in the market. We thought that by doing this, customers will buy more. How can we know? Let's check quickly. Let's not invest a massive amount of money and then be shocked and surprised afterwards. That's the first practical way of making sure that we can always learn the right lessons from experience. The second one has to do with the fact that every time we make a decision, it's kind of like doing an experiment. And we often fail to list very clearly what are the assumptions that we've made that this decision was based on. And as a result, by the time that we see the effect, we've forgotten about those assumptions. So if you get into the habit of writing down every assumption that you make, both for deciding what to do, but as importantly, what not to do, you then have a much better chance that when you finally get the outcome, you can go back and check, was the assumption valid, yes or no? And if not, where else can I be making mistakes because of this invalid assumption? Those are the two practical ways to ensure that you can achieve a target that looks almost impossible, to make sure that you always learn the right lessons from your experience, making the impossible possible, to shorten your feedback cycle and to explicitly list every decision's assumptions and then checking them afterwards.